The Express.
Welcome to the Express podcast. We're so fortunate to have my dad on this episode. He has so much insight and wisdom through his experiences in life. As a dad and now a granddad, he understands the ebbs and flows of life and why it's important to always come back to the center of Christ. We discuss marriage and marital values and how we're called to love our wives like Christ loved the church. He also opens up about raising kids and how to get the most out of your experience with your kids. Please enjoy as much as we did. A little late.
There it is.
Thank you all for tuning in to the Express podcast. We are really excited to have none other than my father on this episode today. So everybody give it up for
All right.
Yeah.
Big time guest.
Yeah, we just wanted to have him on. There's so much insight and wisdom that I feel like he can provide. I know we're a big podcast, talk about what's, growing to be a better human, learning things about being a better athlete. This would be our first on, parenting and marital stuff and, growing in faith and the importance of that in your life and the relationship with Christ. And, I just think that this kind of embodies what it is that we're wanting to preach to other people and really put out for people to be able to consume. So just excited to have you on today. Thanks for agreeing to do this.
Don't oversell.
Yeah. And
I've coached all three of you guys.
say our first guest that's known us our entire
y'all
lives.
are going to really know the truth both ways here.
But yeah, so I did ask you if there was anything that you felt called to talk
No,
about today.
I'm good. I'm good with what you came up with.
All right. Well, there we go.
Let it eat.
Got the outline going.
Which one you want to start with first? You just want to start at the top, or do you want to?
I say we just start at the top. I think that kind of is the centerpiece of everything we want to talk about. Just want to really just start off by talking about relationship with Christ and the importance of church. And I know we've had a lot of discussions around that as I've gotten older and, see it with Lindsay and Chase and stuff with having kids and kind of seeing it from a different perspective now as a grandparent. So I guess we'll just start off. Did you grow up in church? What was that?
Yeah, my parents took my sister and I to church. I don't really remember not going to church, and at those times, it was Sunday morning, Sunday night, every Wednesday, and of course there were revivals during the summer, and my parents really liked Southern gospel music,
Yeah.
like your dad,
Shout out
Mitchell.
Barry.
And that was a big part of our lives. At our church, a lot of times we would have church, then we would have dinner on the grounds, and then we would have what was called singings in the afternoons for a couple of hours, different people and the people in the church. We would sing, and sometimes we'd go different places. And so, yeah, I sort of grew up going to church. I mean, that's just what you did every Sunday, There wasn't golf Sunday mornings. There wasn't baseball. No, you got up and we had our routine and went. So
Yeah, and so growing up in church, did you ever experience a shift, I guess, in understanding more about Jesus and Christ and that relationship? Like, because I know growing up in the South in those ages, it can be a little bit more strict and disciplinarian in a way. Like, was there ever?
Yeah, there was some of that. But, for me, it wasn't like this lightning strike thing. That was where we went. I understood some of it. And it wasn't one of those things, oh my gosh, I'm just an awful person and I've got to have Christ. It wasn't that way. I just sort of grew into it to where, when I was around 12 or so, I made that decision. Said, this is who I need to be, and acknowledge what I think, Christ ended up doing for us. And so, that's just sort of, it just evolved for me. It's not one of those testimonies where you go hear the guy that, they've been homeless for 3 years. He's on drugs and he had this earth shattering thing happen to him. And for me, it wasn't that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's an important thing to kind of go over, not just gloss over, is so many times I think we hear the stories about the transformative moments, and that's not necessarily the case. I think we talk so much on this, like there is a choice involved, right? There's a choice every day involved into that relationship, right? And committing to it. And like I said, at age 12 and 13, I just realized that this is what I was supposed to be and what I was feeling called to be, and it's what I did, and kind of laid my life into that realm. So,
but that also ebbs and flows. It's not like, okay, from that point on, I'm the dude out there for Christ. You grow, you change, but you evolve through that stuff. And I think once you have made that decision, you end up coming back and you grow in your faith and you just mature. The things that are important to you at 12 are not the same things that are important to you when you're 20 looking for a wife. Things change. So it's a whole process, just like no different than what you do in spring training every day. You may take a break in the off season, but you get right back to it. You understand that that's who you are and what you have to do. And I think for me, it sort of was the same way in my walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would just say too, for everyone listening, you're right. It doesn't have to be some, testimony where, you're on the streets or on drugs or whatever. But for each person, it's probably different because we all three grew up going to church and then all have different stories at certain points revolving around that church or whatever, because things change, life changes, your routine changes. So, I mean, as you got older, I'm sure they played on Sundays, on the weekends a lot. So that had to change, and how your relationship kind of forms with that. So I think it's important that over time you are going to grow and to change, but it does speak volumes when you continue to go, like, get back right into it instead of just walking away. So.
I think the other thing that I feel like we've experienced, I know you've experienced as well with your dad, working at Maple Avenue, is just the community element of church, and how, in a way, I feel like we've kind of gotten away from that. And yes, relationship is important, right? Like, our relationship with Christ is the most important thing, but there's also this call to community and being after the same thing together. And I know that you were involved with the church, and it was put on your heart about just having prayer events together on Sunday evenings. You want to just kind of talk a little bit more about just like community and the importance of that?
Well, our lifelong friends are at our church, and we have other lifelong friends, but a lot of it does revolve around our relationships there. And as I've become a grandparent, I have grown children, and I have grandchildren, and you guys will probably experience this too, especially you now that you have a little one. As a dad, I felt like I was supposed to fix things. I was supposed to, when your kid's having a problem or whatever, you need to help him with that problem. Well, let me tell you, as your kids get older and you have grandkids, there's all kinds of stuff, and you have to come to the realization that I can't fix everything. When Dansby struggles for a week, I can't fix it. Yeah. I've tried.
Yeah.
Not due to lack of effort.
Yeah. But it's really hard. I tell people all the time, baseball season starting is great. When it's over, it's even better. I get to read books, but during the season, I watch every game. I don't go, but I watch every game, and I have old school opinions and all, and he doesn't want, he tolerates and listens. Okay. But I can't fix it. And it's really hard because that's what you want to do as a parent and a grandparent. And so I'm sitting around talking to other people that are just like me, and they're the same place. Everybody has this concern for their kids and this concern for their grandkids, because they see what society's like, how things are, and how time dwindles fast, and all my friends were all the same. And so it just was, I just struggled with this thing for months to finally, I just said, okay, God, if that's what you want me to do. So I sort of started this thing. We have once a month at our church. It's called a prayer gathering. And we get together to pray for our kids and our grandkids. And we write on a little note card who it is we want to pray for. And that's our offering for that 1 hour. And when we're finished, everybody that gave a card takes a card. And we pray for that, whoever's on that card for that month. And it's a good thing. It's a good community thing. We share, we hear results. And of course, things don't always happen on Monday after Sunday. The Israelites wandered around for hundreds of years before stuff happened. But still at the same time, like in that chapel where we have that service, it was built in late 1800, 1890 or something. The people that prayed and had those prayers for that starting in that church and that chapel the effects are still being felt here 100 years later. So I think we keep that in perspective, but that's sort of one of the things that we did.
Well, it's kind of interesting. It's like when you view it in that way, in some sense, because I'm assuming there's a lot of generational people that go to the church you all go to. So in some sense, the same people that are in that room praying are the answers to other people's prayers. Like that's kind of a powerful way to look at it.
Yeah. And, things have sort of changed too. I thought it was a great idea. I had a postcard made with a picture from the back of the chapel of the people there praying. You can't tell who's there. I mean, And I was people, if you want me to send a card, I'll just handwrite on there. We were praying for you, and just send it to them. I thought that's great. But then a lot of people are like, oh, I would never do that because then my kids are going to think I think something's wrong with them. I'm like, really? That was sort of strange to me. I thought it'd be great if I got a card saying, I'm praying for you. Good. I need that stuff,
all
right?
I can get.
So that just, that showed me right away. My culture, for me, when I was growing up, that would be a good thing. But for you guys, some of you guys, if you got that, and you're like, okay, what am I doing wrong? And that wasn't the message at all. So.
I think it's so powerful praying together as a community. I feel like you can really feel God move in those instances, just because it is such a community and collaborative thing. I feel like it's like a roots-driven thing that people are all involved in the same thing, and we're praying for each other. And who knows, like there could be things that are going on in our lives that we're not necessarily disclosing to other people, but there is a lot of power shedding, like basically putting light in darkness, right? I just
well, there's something powerful about people getting together to pray for the same sorts of things. I understand your plight. I don't know the details. I don't need to.
Right.
We've done 4 months now. It's been really, really powerful.
And cool. I find myself when I am praying for y'all or my family, it's kind of the same thing. I just pray. I don't know what they're going through. What is on their heart, and you can take care of it. So
it's kind of interesting. It's almost like they're viewing it as like, oh, I'm praying for you. As like you're looking at their situation as a negative one.
Like
you know what I mean?
Praying isn't just for fixing things either.
No.
It's
thankful.
Hey, I'm praying for protection over
wisdom,
whatever,
guidance, whatever. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just thanks.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for my grandkids. I'm thankful my kids have great spouses. They have their jobs. They're not living at my house.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord.
Bless it. How would you say, just over time, your relationship with Christ has developed and grown as you've gone through? Because you've obviously gone through so many phases of, single, married, parent of one, parent of multiple, now grandparent.
You guys are in that place now where you're trying to do everything you can to get ahead, to get to the next place, to be the person that you think you're supposed to be. and you should. But at the same time, I guess as you get older, you look back and you can say, okay, I did that and I did that. I don't really know why we did that, but that was a good idea that we did. And then there's sometimes you're like, oh man, I screwed that up or whatever. But that's all a part of it too, is learning those things. And you're going to screw up doing stuff with your kids. And then there's things you're going to be like, they don't get it now, but
we got that right.
Yeah, we did that right. So in the end, you hope that the end product is where you want it to be, right? So as you go through that, you sort of end up figuring out, some of this stuff I did, but I don't really know why I did it, and I've evolved, and God was right there somehow in that. And I see it now. I didn't get it then. And so you become a little more reliant on, darn, God can really do some stuff. And one of the things I mentioned at your wedding, I'm a senior in high school taking physics class. I come out of my class and there's a girl walking by. She's a sophomore every day, and I see her. And there's just something about her. I thought she was gorgeous. She's an incredible athlete. And I thought to myself, I'm going to marry her. That wasn't me. Put that thought in my mind.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of that. And eventually she saw the light. And now we've been married for over 40 years, and it's just a fantastic thing. But for a long time I thought, dude, you're spot on that. It wasn't me. It took a while for me to figure that out.
It's literally the perfect segue into now talking about being a good husband.
Well, I'm not sure
that's a daily
qualify on that one. I guess, the way to look at it, you have to look at, I think the best way to look at it is thinking that the best spouse looks at it as Jesus married to the church. I mean, Jesus was, his bride was the church. So I don't care if you're the wife or the husband, if you just approach it in that regard. I mean, Jesus did everything. He did the ultimate thing for his church, right? And so I think once you get to that place, because look, we're all selfish. Everybody sitting in here and listen to this, we're selfish in some term or another, and that comes and goes too, right? But in the end, if you can look at it that you want the best for your spouse, you're good to go. And the same for your kids. I can remember when I was a kid, my dad saying, and my mom too, we want you and your sister to have it better than we did. Well, they were born in the 30s. They lived through a lot of stuff. And, my dad was up at 5:30 every morning to go to work, work at Lockheed, and then come home and then go umpire baseball or referee football games because we needed the money, those kinds of things. I'm not sure we do that much. I don't know if people think, gosh, I want my kids to have it better than me, because to tell you the truth, all three of my kids are doing great. Their kids are going to have a stretch to do as well as they are. I mean, they're going, there's a high bar set here, right? So, I think if you can just put yourself aside and do as Jesus did for his church, I think that goes a long way to accomplishing what you want to accomplish as a spouse.
How does your marriage sort of adapt once you do have the kids? And they're ranging from 9 years, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're splitting time taking baseball, you do. And
yes, you do all that stuff. And that's where, when we talked about when we started here, how things can ebb and flow in your walk. I mean, it's easy to get busy. And there's it seems like the Lord has a way to get your attention when you get too busy, or, all those kinds of things. But in the end, you got to figure out a way to make time for your spouse, and your spouse has to make time for you. And, if you're of like mind, if you both think the same about, where God is, and even though sometimes it gets pushed a little to the side, you still know, and you still know in your mind, both of you still know that's the whole base of this thing, right? So your whole life is about changes. I mean, you guys are young. It was weird going to middle school, then it was weird going to high school, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to college, and how you approach college and versus how that freshman year versus senior, totally different things. And same thing with you now. So you ebb and flow with it all, and you come back to the same place, I think.
Yeah, I think that's how I hear it too. Is for people listening, is things are going to ebb and flow. It's not always going to be directly in the center, but that's the purpose. You have your ebbs and your flows, so it goes back and forth. But to always come back to the same spot, I think sometimes we're too hard on ourselves in that regard. We blame ourselves for failures or don't give ourselves grace and I do it a lot when it comes to that. I expect myself to perform like this in everything at all times and hate it when I don't and try and fix it when I'm not. And
there's tons of mountains and valleys. God took Abraham up on a mountain. There was that whole experience. The Ten Commandments, Moses is up on the mountain, but sooner or later he had to come down off the mountain, right? Jesus was out in the wilderness. Satan took him up on a mountain. All this stuff has ebbs and flows. You can't always have the mountaintop experience, and darn, you can't always stay in the valley either. It's just a part of the way the life cycle works, and you need to be aware of that and try to have your baseline there where you can always come back to that same place.
I know Dansby's kind of harped on this a lot too, just being newly married, and how, especially now that you've been married 40 plus years, is going into each day, how are you, you have to choose to love and make sacrifices and do all this stuff for your wife, for your spouse, as Jesus did for the church. So if you could just brush on kind of maybe some tips, advice, or things you do that help allow that to happen daily.
Well, I think
hourly.
One of the big pluses is when you choose wrong, you get corrected. so you start learning how to make right choices, right?
They say you learn the most through failure.
Yeah, and if your spouse is like mine, you figure it out pretty quick. I don't know. It's it seems to me that when I was first married, you have your ideas about your relationship, and all that's great, and it's what it should be. You look at your spouse and you just this is the perfect mate for me, but you're thinking this the perfect mate for me, and the me gets in the way a lot of times. And as you grow and you choose, yes, the statement you choose to love them, that's true. But what has happened over time is I can't imagine not loving my wife because of how much she loves me. When she can say to me, "I'm so glad I'm married to you," it changes things. And when you see that your spouse is willing to give everything for your well-being, I don't know how you can't help but try to think, I need to do the same thing. And so I think it's just, again, it's life experiences. As you go along, you're going to have your arguments and you're going to have your disagreements. And, she thinks you should take piano lessons. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I think so too, because my parents made me, but he's not going to do this,
Yeah.
And I barely made it a year. Barely.
And so you get through all that.
You made it a year.
I didn't even know you did that.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
kudos to you, sir.
Yeah. The only thing that he didn't do that the other two did was cotillion, right? Yeah,
We can tell.
We want them to know the
Yeah, we know.
the for sure manners of which fork you're supposed to use and all that kind of stuff. And Dancy's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
2 out of 3 is not bad.
Right. Let me ask this real quick. I know you got something you want to get to. So what are some of the challenges that you and Mom have had to work through?
Well, first, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I taught school for a little while, and I got really tired of saying where are you supposed to be,
Yep.
or you can't come into my math class without pencil and paper.
Yep.
So, that didn't last long. And then I said, okay, I'm going to work at Lockheed because that's a good job. I was a computer program engineering division, but I hated it. Going down the tunnel every day, sitting in a cubicle, I couldn't do that. The whole time Nancy's working, right? She's the stable one. I'm the one trying to figure out, I was Mitchell before Mitchell. So
I'm in good company.
That's a compliment, bro.
Yes, sir.
Go on.
You're in good company. Yeah. So, we had to go through all that stuff, of me trying to figure out who I was, what I wanted to do, and you have those challenges all the time. You have challenges with your kids and what you think and what she thinks, and you sort of have to learn to mediate and compromise and come up with the best plan that works for both of you, because the kid is both of your child, right? And so you work through that stuff. You work through money stuff. Everybody goes through the money thing. We create monsters we have to feed every month, so our checks go to pay something. You just have to be willing to work with each other and figure out the choices. There were some things that I came up with and wanted to do that Nancy said, okay, I told all of the kids, we're not paying for you to go to college. You can go to college on your own. I coached a little in college and was there and saw how many people went to school and they didn't give an effort that much. Mom and Dad's paying for it, but when you got skin in the game, it's a little different. Mm-hmm. So, Chase is an attorney. Lindsay's got her PhD in psychology, and I forget what he does, but they all paid their way through school. Mm-hmm. When he went to Vandy, we walked out and he said, "This is where I'm supposed to be," and I said, "Yep, but we're not paying for it. How are you going to pay for it?" For that time, it was $60-something grand a year. Mm-hmm. And
it's not like I had a big scholarship to cover it either.
Yeah.
No. You didn't get any money the first year. Baseball, you got a grant, money. A school grant,
it was
like
or
15%
something. Of
so you owed tens of thousands of dollars after the first year. Yeah. But I think it made a difference for them. And I don't know about Lindsay, but I know Chase Tucker, his oldest, I was going to give him start a college savings account for Christmas when he's 2, because he don't care what you give him for Christmas. He's going to play with the box. And Chase is like, "Why are you going to do that?" I said, "Well, it's just, I can now. It'd just be a nice thing." He said, "Well, you didn't do that for us." I'm like, "No." He said, "So why are you doing it for him?" "I'm going to do the same thing you did for Tucker." "Okay, so I won't do that then." I just, some of that stuff you think of, and hopefully your spouse will buy into it. And she didn't want to pay for him to go to school either, I think. So
Mom doesn't like paying for much of anything.
Yeah, Mom doesn't. No.
Honey, that costs money.
Yeah.
Not doing that.
It is true though that when you have skin in the game, it just, like my parents, I had to pay for my school.
In anything you do. Yeah. Your kids need to have, we have this old saying of, you want to play? Give the coach a reason to play you.
Yeah.
Don't you go tell, as a parent, I used to tell mine when y'all were playing, I know all of y'all want your kid to play short and bat third, but everybody can't sing.
But my
the-
son's doing it.
right,
But Dansby's going to do that.
but everybody can't sing the solo in the 5th grade PTA presentation. Okay,
Which I did.
They can be in the choir,
Yeah.
but not everybody can sing the solo.
Barry might have pulled some strings on that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's interesting.
No, I love that.
Yeah. It's also interesting when you talk about, like I think about that often with my spouse of Lexi, of how much she pours into me and loves me, and how like I would be, like, if I didn't do anything what I do, I feel like God's looking at me like, what are you doing? I've given you this gift, like the greatest gift right here, and you're not treating it well. But and we've talked about this before, where your parents love you because, well, you're their kid. Like, you know, your grandparents love you because you're their children's children. Your wife is the only person that is choosing to love you, or your girlfriend or whoever. Like, they're saying, okay, I see you and all your flaws and all the stuff that annoys me or whatever, and I still love you more than anything else in the world. And I'm going to give everything I got to you. So it's very important that we give everything we can to them.
Well, and it's important your kids know that too.
Yes. Oh,
You know, our daughter Lindsay would always say, Dad has made it clear, if there's a fire in the house, y'all need to get out because he's taking care of Mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. And there's a,
We lose that perspective though, because I feel like I've seen it where people have kids and then all of a sudden all the attention goes to the kids and the spouse gets left behind. But at the end of the day, the most important relationship that we have here on this earth is with our spouse, and keeping that perspective is
well, I just feel,
important.
as a recent dad, I just feel like there's no, and granted, my son can't walk, talk, move. You know, he's
just kind of there.
he's hanging out.
Yeah.
But if Lexi and I are not on the same page, like doing what we're doing, upbuilding ourselves, there's no way. I just know when it gets a little more dicier with another one running around and Max older, and that foundation's got to be solid and firm.
Max is totally dependent on you and us. Totally. He can't survive without y'all. So this is at one of those stages that, okay, this is where we focus our time. You still have to carve out a little time, but it's not going to be very long before Max wants to go with Billy home after baseball. He doesn't really
don't want to care about dad and mom anymore.
They're having pizza. Y'all are cooking some veggie something or other. So I'm going there, and so things end up changing. And then one day, they're doing their own thing, and you still need to be able to go home and enjoy being with your spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's true.
no, that's important.
What is I guess the next little question is, what's some of the best advice you've received from somebody else in marriage, whether it's when you were firstly married or now or anything at all?
Anything stand out?
I think we've pretty much already touched on it, other than the absolute true saying of, if Mom's not happy, there's nobody happy. And yeah, you need to keep Mom happy.
Happy wife, happy life. That's what I mean.
Yeah, but if I try to make her happy, I find out I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
You say that, but if she is joyful and happy and in a good place, it comes right back to you. So I don't know. Marriage isn't 50-50. It's 100% one way for you. And that's, I don't know that there's a better way that I would rather it be. Because I know that she's 100% for me. Mm-hmm. So there's not a lot of people that are 100% for you. Not even your parents, you know? So
No, I agree with
that's a nice place to be.
They become like your ultimate teammate, right? Like, we've all played sports growing up. There's always, like, two of them are sitting right here. There's guys that you play with that no matter what, they're gonna support you. And
I watched the Nolan Ryan documentary last night. He started out with the Mets. He was awful. I mean, he's throwing the ball all over the place. He's going to quit. He wants to farm. He wants to be a rancher. He's going to quit. And his wife said no. She said, you need to give this more time. I mean, she was 100%. Everybody else around, including him, was, I'm done. My goodness, what if he didn't have her?
Mm-hmm.
7 no-hitters, 5,000 something strikeouts. I mean,
well, it's different when you
46
when you have
27 years in the big leagues.
Yeah, that's insane. But when you do have that true teammate to where, like, with your wife, like, it does not matter what problem we come across, because we're going to collaborate, talk, and then move how we need to move. I'd say the term liberating, but I mean, I think we've all been in a bad situation before, and so we understand. But it's just a different level of trust and love, and then shoot, you add a child into it, which is what I want to talk to you.
Well, the other thing I would say is you have to be forgiving,
graceful.
Nobody's perfect.
If you can't forgive, why is somebody else going to forgive you? And carrying that around all the time, you carry it for a few days, it starts eating at you. It's you gotta be able to forgive. Thank goodness Nancy has to forgive me a lot more than the other way around. I think that's
typically the way it goes.
Yeah. I could see that.
Well, they just make us feel guilty.
They're good at that. Can I go to kids?
Yeah.
So
you're the only one with a child, brother.
Well, but I just want to know, because there is, so you and Chase are how far? 9 years?
9.
So the difference in each one of the chickens
they're all different.
Yeah, from sure. Chase to then when Dansby was coming up, just not only how they're different, but how you may have viewed your parenting style with number 1 versus number 2 versus number
Well, of course, Lindsay, his sister, would tell you, he's the golden child. He could do whatever he wanted to and get away with it.
The youngest usually are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some truth in that.
Me and Lindsay,
they're all different.
The middle child.
They're all different, and there's a lot of ways that you have to parent the same, and there's some things that you have to do differently, right? We were incredibly blessed. All 3 of my kids were driven, competitive. I mean, y'all know Dansby's incredibly competitive. I don't know that any of them have more willpower than his sister, Lindsay.
True.
She does, she's a sports psychologist. She doesn't like the terminology mental toughness, but that's sort of my fallback. She's one of those. He and Chase both could have her on the floor as kids in a headlock and everything else. And, okay, she will not say uncle. It doesn't matter. She could stay there all day. So you end up having to figure out
5'2" and led her team in rebounding.
Yeah.
In high school. I know. So you figure out their strengths, their weaknesses, and you try to help all of them. You try to help their strengths. You try to help their weaknesses too. And I don't know that there's any one certain way, but I do know this, that in the end, when they're adults like you guys are, you want them to want to be around you. So you've got to figure out, and that doesn't mean giving them everything. They got better friends than you at school. Okay, you need to be the mom and the dad.
You're a parent.
You're a parent, and if every time you go somewhere and you ask them, "What do you want to eat?" Well, they're getting the same thing: a hot dog or chicken finger. Sooner or later, you need to eat some other stuff, right? So you have to be the parent and help them with their choices, and just know that you're parenting for them to be the best they can be. And then once they're at that place, they still want to be around you. They still want you to go to dinner here or there, go on a trip here or there, come to the house. I mean,
come to a podcast.
It would just be awful to be in the place where your kids didn't want to come over to the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like coming over to the house.
Yeah. I understand that. Trust me.
No, I think, the one thing that I'll say about it's one of those things where growing up, I mean, they were in a tight ship. Let's call it is what it is. They were in a tight ship.
Well, we had high expectations.
Right.
You know, we expected your best.
In everything that we did.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of slack on that kind of stuff.
Which is such a blessing now looking at, because you see so many times that's not the case in other area or with other families, and you just see some of the, you know, I don't even know how to explain it. You just see a lot. I'm not gonna say flaws, but you just see the performance in certain areas is just not to a certain level. The work ethic.
You could say that long term, like how routine oriented you are now.
But you know that
derived from
not
the
all
standard.
kids are that way. We were blessed with 3 kids that were sort of driven anyway.
Mhm.
You know, tell people like Chase, his oldest brother, he was a really good baseball player. He really was. But he's really smart too. And so in high school, he's playing high school baseball, and he's dog tired. You know, he's doing school all day, and he's making, you know, he's one of those 4.3 students, you know, and I know you don't know
I
that.
I get it.
You can add 2 and 2 and almost get there. Right. So anyway, so
thank God I was an athlete, you know.
yeah, and so you know it's a struggle for him. He's so tired, and I'm like, he's not doing great on the field right now because he's tired. Well, it's 1:00 in the morning, and he's still up doing homework. And I go up to him. I said, Chase, he said, Dad, I just have one. No, you're going to bed right now. You got to get up at 6:30. You're dragging. He said, I just have to do my Spanish homework, and then I'll be finished. I said, I'm sorry. You know, I'm telling you, you're not turning in your Spanish homework tomorrow. This is in the spring. It's baseball, right? He goes, oh, wait a second. He looks in his Spanish notebook. He pulls out a homework pass from October. Okay? I'm like, dude, I would have used that the next day, or I would have lost it, right?
I would have just handed it right back to her. Like, just go ahead and keep
remember this. Yeah, remember this.
So, you know, that's sort of how they were anyways. If one of them had been a real slacker or lazy, they probably wouldn't have lived very long at our house. I don't know. But the way we thought it worked, it happened to work good because our 3 kids were sort of driven that way. So
I feel like too, it's one thing Lexi and I are going to try to do is be the example of the standard that we want. So yes, your 3 kids are extremely driven, but they have you, and you know.
Well, they saw what their mom is incredibly driven. I mean, you know, she's doing something all the time, and I was trying to start a business, and so I would be at work and work all day, and then come do baseball with all you guys and all that kind of stuff, a game or whatever. And then a lot of times I left and went back to work at night. You know, I was there till 11, 12 o'clock sometimes, you know, because, and they saw that, knew that, and they just sort of thought, well, that's how you do stuff, I guess.
But you were still, I think that you were still, you never let the work part get in the way of the family part too, though.
Tried to not do that. That's right.
Work from, let's call it 7, get to work at 7:30, come home around 5 or 5:30. That was pretty consistent every day. What time you got home, and then to do dinner, and then go throw BP, go shoot around in the yard or whatever. Like you'd always do that stuff too, though, which was to me important and impressive at the same time.
Like, just go take Dansby to work.
Yeah, or take me to work.
I'm sure that him doing that with you, though, fueled him to go back to work. Because I know, like, for me, I get done with school, and then I come home sometimes for 30, 45, and then I see Mac, and I may have, another game or whatever afterwards. And I look forward to so much of that 30, 45 with Mac and Lexi that when I see them, it kind of gives me a little juice to go back. Because I'm like, hey, this is what I'm doing it for. You know what I mean? So,
but we coached. Nancy and I both coached. So we coached
all
y'all.
Stories about
we sort of treated y'all the same way we treated them.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I demanded out of you too, right? That's just sort of the way we were.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's just sort of the way we were put together. So
Yeah. I always say that Nancy's the most intimidating third base coach I've ever had. When she hit you with the 3-0 no, you weren't swinging.
yeah.
Some fun times.
Still now, Dansby might swing on a 3-0, and I'm just like, oh, Nancy's got something to say about that.
Yeah, I'm getting my inbox is full from my mother saying, "Why did you
do that?"
Yeah,
that's funny. Is there anything with, I guess, raising raising boys that, like, or I'll start this. What was it like when Chase was born? Like, what were some of your feelings of firstborn son, just thoughts of what you wanted to do, stuff like that's not really on topic, but just
I don't think I was any different than you were.
Yeah.
You know, you think what might can be, and then you try to think how you can position things so that they have an opportunity to be who they need to be. Good or bad, I had, I don't know if you call it intuition or a gift. I sort of could tell what all of them were going to be before they knew.
Mm-hmm. Let's hear it.
I had told Chase a long time that he needed to be an attorney. He looked at me like I had a third eye, and you're crazy. I'm not going to school. Doing all that kind of stuff. And then lo and behold, along his junior year, a couple of his fraternity brothers were going to law school, and he called and said, "They come on sit for the LSAT." And I'm like, sort of the same sort of thing.
Told you.
For Lindsey. I had no idea Dansby was going to play at the level he's achieved. I knew he was driven. I knew he was good in some things, but I think I was a little bit different dad than a lot of them. I also knew deficiencies, just because I saw it all the time. Mm-hmm. I used to tell him, I don't really know why, but I've seen you swing more than anybody else in the world. This is what's happening. I don't know how to fix it or whatever, but you sort of just figure out your kids and help them get where you want them to be or where they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's a kind of interesting. When Dan's was coming up, when we were kids or whatever, did you think, because obviously Chase, we talked about, I met somebody in the gym who ended up playing with Chase, and he was like, yeah, I used to come to Chase's little brother games all the time. And I was like, oh, so you watched me play when I was a kid. Because he was talking about when we were like 7 and 8. But
who was it?
Scott Faulkner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott Faulkner.
Yeah. So he was talking to me about, when did I know that Dansby was going to become, this? And obviously we knew he was really good as kids, but just from your perspective, watching him from literally, 6 years old, Adams Park, to now, what was it like seeing him go through the process to where he is right now? Or just maybe your thoughts as he went through each stage.
Yeah. He had the first thing that, to me, that you really have to have is that he's incredibly competitive. He and his mom leave blood on the table and ping pong at our house.
Oh, yeah.
So that wasn't a deal. Some kids have to learn to be competitive. But he had a way, even when he was small, to understand. He really understood the game, and he paid attention to detail. And then, he's 9 and doing the backhand and the whole sliding on the knee, coming up and throwing. I don't know. I didn't teach him that.
So no more videos.
No more videos. It's all the superstar shortstop videos.
But, people would tell me, he can do this, this, this. And I'm like, yeah, but in my mind, I'm like, but, he's got to do this. He's small. He's, but in his case, God has blessed him with an ability, a talent, but he has a mindset to do more than all of us sitting here ever thought he would do. Y'all did not think that he was going to be playing like he is now when he was 10. You didn't, you know.
I did.
Well, I thought we all three were going to be doing it.
Well, I knew at 10 you weren't. So,
Just because the height?
yeah.
Yeah, size.
Just size.
The height and, you know, wearing your hat backwards playing second. So
King Griffey videos.
Yeah, completely contrasting styles here.
exactly.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Yeah. So
No, and I feel like you did such a good job though too of with those deficiencies. It was never a harping on them in such a negative fashion. Like the instilling of a good work ethic and understanding, hey, you know, when I'm 9, 10 talking about I want to play in the big leagues, you're like, yeah, well, guess what? These are the things you're going to have to do and sacrifice and work at. I mean, we hit a lot, but you weren't dragging me out there. But you also knew at times where there was like, when's the last time you hit? Like,
Or
3
when to
days
turn
ago?
it off.
Well, we should probably go out there, you know?
yeah, and
the
we
balance of that.
tried to give you opportunities. We tried to put you in the best places where you could get better. You know, we got you coaching, weight training with Rocky, you know, just different things, you know, speed, building up your speed, you know, all those things, because we would talk about, you know, these are things you have to be able to do to play where you want to be able to play. And the difference was he didn't just practice them. It was a part of day-to-day thing. If he, I would be willing to bet that if he wasn't practicing them, he was still thinking about them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's all the scenarios, all the things you've seen. We've talked about how you need to play those in your mind before they even happen, and I think he's done that.
Well, and how much of an advantage did you and Nancy have of being the level of athletes you all were? Because what you're essentially talking about is being able to see the deficiencies and be a good coach when you're doing it, but it's from a father perspective.
Yeah, I was immersed in baseball, so I knew a lot of things, but I probably also taught him a lot of things that weren't right. They were probably right for my era, but things have changed, you know, and I changed. I remember Chad Prosper played shortstop for North Carolina. His dad and I played together. I watched him play in the World Series, and I'm like, he was the first guy I remember in college baseball that fielded the ball on the move, running through the ball and throwing on the move to first base.
Catch the ball with one hand. It's not about getting in front of it. It's about catching it. And
right.
I learned that when and that just happened to be when Chase was
Chase. I got Chad and Chase. They were Chase was in high school. Chad was in college. And I took them to a field and hit them ground balls because I wanted Chase to see what he was doing. And I watched him and talked to him. There's one spot, every ball he caught hitting that one spot in his glove. Mm-hmm. Backhand, right at him, or to the left side, he came through. Every one of them caught it one hand and he never set his feet and threw to first. And I said, you know, this is the way you play shortstop.
At a high level.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started teaching him that when he's 8 or 9. So yeah, some of that stuff, but you just try to put your kid in a place where they can succeed. And then you got to let them get out there and do it and fail too. Yes. You can't go run to their defense every time. They got to learn. I mean, you know, you don't do your job at work, you get fired. Okay. Mom and dad can't go get your job again for you. You got to do the same thing when they're kids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the interesting part. It's just funny because seeing all the coaches' kids at the high school level, all their kids who play sports, they're like, we'll go watch them or catch them in a game, and they're just a level above the other kids. And it's always interesting. We had a podcast where we talked about how like certain people in the NBA, when their father was in the NBA, or how many high level athletes also had high level athletes in the family. It just gives them a advantage. Like I'll go and cover camps where kids will do like cone work, and they have young kids from like, let's say 6 all the way up to high school kids. Just depends on the camp. They got NFL guys there, and you can tell which kids had parents that, because of just how they go around a cone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just very interesting to me to see that of little stuff, like just little stuff that just you do instinctively to your boys or whatever,
Right.
just because.
Well, and it's different too. I'm sure Dansby will tell you this too. There's guys that played in the big leagues, or they know how hard it is, the work they have to put in, and they don't necessarily push their kids to do that.
Mhm.
Mal would probably tell you, "Oh, I don't want my kid to play soccer." He might say, "I'd rather them play soccer or play something else. Play golf. Don't do baseball." Because they know what's required. But at the same time, if their kid says, "No, that's what I want to do," then guess what?
That's what they're good.
We're all in. Let's do it all the way.
Yeah. That's fun. We have a lot of kids who I help them get recruited for football, and we always have a conversation with them before we start picking levels of their caliber of where we think they can go and match up. Of, do you understand what this means? Like, we just had it with my brother-in-law. He's playing lacrosse in Alabama, and he was trying to get recruited, this, that, and the other. And I would tell him, I say, okay, Tony, I want you need to understand that what you're entering into for college athletics is not what you've been doing.
Yeah, no, it's all different.
level.
Even though you have been working your tail off, hitting the gym, getting to the field, you are there for athletics,
right.
And then school is second. It doesn't matter what level you're at. That's what it is.
Well, it's not that way at Vanderbilt.
Well,
Not at all.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, once again, the balance, though, of this is what the kid wants to do versus what they should do. Just tell a story about me playing basketball and also playing baseball.
Okay. So Dansby was a really good basketball player. And, his fantasy dream was to play at Duke basketball.
it's a good dream.
Still got some eligibility left, I think.
Yeah. So, basketball is a fun game to play, and it's a fun game to practice. It's different than baseball. Baseball can be monotonous, and, you're outside in the cold weather in high school. And Dansby's playing basketball, and he's playing well, and he decides, I think I want to be a basketball player. I don't think I'm going to play baseball this year.
This was when I was young, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of did high school some too, but this is when
Yeah. And I said, no, you're going to play baseball too, because, just as soon as baseball season's here, you're going to wish you – well, it spilled over into high school then. He realized, I'm probably not going to be able to play at Duke, so I'm just going to play baseball. I'm not going to play basketball. And I'm like, no, you're going to play basketball too, because 2 games into the season, you're going to be sitting there in the stands and my gosh, we could win this game. If I'd played, we would have won this game, or the competition of the whole thing. And so we had to make him do both for a little bit.
I'll never forget. I was maybe 11, and basketball season was kind of coming to a close, and I was so adamant that I wasn't playing baseball. Because I loved basketball. I was so invested into that season. It's I'm not going to play baseball. And I remember you going, all right, we got to leave in 15 minutes. Go get dressed for baseball. Go put your pants on. And he comes back and, 10, 12 minutes. I'm literally laying on the couch doing the old
not going.
I'm not going. I refuse.
Yeah.
And it was
you were being stubborn?
Then it was
Oh,
that's weird. Then I just remember being
oh,
get your butt up.
Yeah.
And at that point, that was
unless you want to see
he
this,
does know best. He's going to.
Unless you want to see this couch moved, you need to get up.
No, I'm going to send Nancy in here.
Yeah. You want me to go get your mother?
Yeah, right. No, that's,
Yes, sir.
I'm on my way.
pants. Yeah, sprint back to my room.
So you said pants on, right?
That's funny.
I want to talk a little bit about coaching. I know you coached all of us. Did you?
What was Mitchell's?
Yeah, we can get into our stories later, but just as far as Did you feel like a calling to coach, or was it, I just want to coach my son, or was it more of?
No, I went to school to coach, and I like coaching. I like helping kids that want to be helped, and I get so much satisfaction in seeing them get better and improve. Now I have people want to ask me about, come help coach this. I would probably rather have 2 or 3 good kids that, wanted to get better. They're working at it. And, a lot of it, I wouldn't even need to be on the field with them. Just talk to them, help them understand, visualize some of this stuff and understand situation, understand what it's going to take to get to that next place. You want to be able to play shortstop. Okay, let me tell you.
That ain't going to work.
You can't go out there and get 30 ground balls on Tuesday and then do it again Saturday. It doesn't work that way. But nothing works that way. Nothing works that way. So until you decide that, even though you don't want to do the hard things, you do the hard things anyway. Everybody will do the things.
Theme on this podcast.
Everybody will do the things that they're good at,
or that's convenient.
You have to be willing to do the things you're not good at, and be embarrassed about it if that's what you want to call it, or be a failure at it for a while if that's what you want to call it. But you can't be that complete in whatever you're competing at, whether it's your job or unless you do all the other things. So coaching, I enjoyed coaching, and I still do. So I guess I'll start with my grandkids soon.
Yeah, it's coming up.
So way to stay around the game. That's why everyone coaches. You're searching for that feeling of when you were playing.
Or you see someone coaching your son or grandson, you're like,
well, there was
there
was a lot of times when I was like, I'm tired. I mean, we had 3 kids. Nancy and I coached all of them, and had to take a little time off. Then you watch, you're like, not only do they not know what about baseball, they don't know how to handle kids. I'll take a coach that knows how to handle kids over one that knows everything about the game, but
can't coach.
Doesn't know how to handle kids.
Yeah, that's part of it. You got to know.
And
the game.
you don't. That's a learned thing too. I'm sure I screwed up with you guys from time to time. That's a learned thing too. But you have to be willing to self-evaluate. No different than a player. All that's important.
Definitely an art to coaching, especially little ones.
Yeah, and that's why I ask, because I almost feel like you have to be called to be a coach.
Especially,
there are times, brother. Yeah,
called for different things for certain stages, for sure. Like I don't talk about kids. I can go work with kids that know what they're doing, and you can actually preach details and techniques and things like that, like actual skills, not just the half
base
like practice
knowledge.
plan. Like how do I get my 8-year-olds engaged in baseball
for
practice?
45 minutes? I need them for 45 minutes.
Yeah, and it's too. I think when you get to a certain level, you like where I was at before I stepped away. You want to coach people who want to be coached. When you try to coach people in there, they always got an opinion or resistance, and
I know how to do that.
You go back to that thing of we're selfish to a degree.
Yeah.
And when you coach, you recognize the time. They don't know that. I'm thinking about this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how I'm going to help this team be better and all this stuff all the time. I just need a little something back from you.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little something back. You don't have to love me, but if I see that you are listening a little bit, you're trying a little bit, it's those times when you go and you do all that stuff, and then there's just never you're not getting better, but you don't really care to get better. But I got to have 12 players, and you're one of them. So
yeah, it's an interesting kind of component to definitely because I think you got to be called to be coached to be a coach, but you just want people or kids to get better, and if they don't want to do that, it becomes very hard to do that.
I think the one thing that I probably appreciate the most just about your coaching in general is the overall teaching of the actual game. Like so much nowadays, it's all about individual skill, and there's never any flow or understanding to the game itself. I mean, we learned how to do double cuts and relays and how to turn double plays the proper way since we were, 11 years old, where the field actually made sense for setting up those kinds of
And arm
plays.
strength, yeah.
When we were working on first and third plays when we were 11 and learning the game, how it operates. And that's why when you talk about some of the coaches' kids kind of thing, because they learn the game.
They know the game
from its core principle. It's not just this is how you field a ground ball, this is how you hit a ball hard, this is how you throw. There's part of that for sure. But there's also an element of breaking down the game and understanding how it flows, where the ball's supposed to get thrown, what the base running rules, how they apply, when to tag up, when not to, all those things.
Well, we were
important.
into it for the baseball. We love baseball and the game, the whole process of, in football, you call a play, you run the play,
reset.
whistle blows, you call another play. Baseball, you may call a play, but what happens dictates what happens next to what happens. It's a flow.
Equation.
Everything, dictates what's going to happen next. And if you don't know what to do next, it's even worse, right? So all of that to say, if you're teaching kids, young kids, all the way through high school, if they learn that component of details, doing the process, doing the work, competing, the hardest thing in the world to do is get in the box and compete against a guy that, I remember I was 9 years old and I was playing Little League Baseball and the guy pitching was 12.
Yeah.
Okay. He was 3 times as big as me. I was scared to death, but learning how to compete. If you don't play baseball further, great. If you learn those things,
It'll be life.
I've done a good thing here, right?
No, this was great. Very, very much appreciate it. I think a lot of folks would get just a ton out of it and just your insight. And I don't know, it's always nice to be able to hear.
Well, it's good as a dad to think you even asked me. So,
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
yeah. And I'll tell you, Mom, she does not want to do this. And she'll say, "You're right. I don't want to do that."